All right, Part 229, Locomotive Safety, Subpart C, Safety Requirements 229.41, Protection Against Personal Injury. Fan openings, exposed gears, pinions, exposed moving parts of the mechanism, piping, carrying cot gases, high voltage equipment, switches, circuit breakers, contactors, relay grids, resistor fuses shall be in non-hazard location or equipped in order to prevent personal injury. Statute 229.43, exhaust and battery gas. Product of the combustion shall be released entirely outside of the cab of the other compartment's exhaust sac shall be sufficient height other than means provided to prevent entry of the product of the combustion into the cab of the other compartment. And so under the usual operation condition, battery containers shall be vented, batteries kept in the gassing of the excessive 229.45. General conditions, all system components of the locomotive shall be free of the condition of the engine or safety of the crew locomotive to train. These conditions include insecure attachment of the components, including third rail shoes, beams, traction motors, motor gear, of the case of the fuel tanks, fuel, oil, water, say, other leaks, the accumulation of oil and electrical equipment that create personal injury, hazard, and proper function components, including slack adjuster, pantographic operation, and cylinder, circuit breakers, contactor, relay, switches, fuses, cracks, brakes, excessive wear, and other structural infirmities, and the components, including quill drives, axles, squares, pinions, pantographic shoes, and horn, third rail beams, and traction motor gear case, and fuel tanks. Alright, the brakes general. Before each of the trip of the railroad should be known the following locomotive brakes devices regulating pressure included, but an unlimited automatic independent brake oil control system operated as intended to, and the water and oil has been drained from the air brake system with all locomotives that consist of the locomotive and the operative and effective automatic independent brake valve. Brake control system will be considered operating as intended for the purpose of paragraph A of this section. Also, the following conditions are met. The locomotive is trailing position, not controlling locomotive, and distributed powertrain consists. The railroad has previously determined the conjunction with the locomotive with the air brake manufacturer placing the such of the transition position adequately isolate the non-function values of the allowed safety operation brake system without controlling locomotive. If the deactivation of the circuit breaker for the air brake system is required, they shall be specified with the railroad operating rules. The tag shall immediately place the isolation switch for the locomotive. Given the date, and location stating of the unit, may only be with the trailing position, may not be used with the lead or control locomotive. The tag required for the paragraph B4 section remains attached to the isolation switch for the locomotive until the repairs are made. Inoperative and ineffective brake control system is repaired prior to the next period inspection. Emergency brake valve. Except for the locomotives with the cabs designed for the occupancy of only one person each, the road locomotive shall be equipped with a brake pipe valve that is accessible to a member of the crew other than the engineer from that crew member's position of the cab and car body. The type of the locomotive. The brake pipe valve should be attached with the wall adjacent to each end of the exit door. The words emergency brake valve shall be legibly stenciled, marked, and near each of the brake pipe valve that shall be on the adjacent badge plate. Dead multiple unit and multiple unit cab and control cab locomotives operated with the road switch shall be equipped with the emergency brake valve that is accessible to another crew member in his passenger compartment or vestibule. The word emergency brake valve shall be legibly stenciled on mark near each of the valves and shall be shown on the adjacent badge plate. 229.49 Main reserve system. The main reserve system of each of the locomotives shall be equipped with at least one safety valve that should prevent the accumulation of the pressure more than 15 pounds per square inch above the maximum working air pressure fixed by the chief mechanical officer carrying the operating locomotive. Except for the non-equipped multiple unit locomotives prior to January 1st, 1981, each locomotive has a pneumatically actuated system. Power control shall be equipped with a separated reservoir with the air under the pressure to need to be used for operating these proper control. The reserve shall be provided means of automatically prevent loss of pressure of the event of the failure to maintain air pressure for the storage capacity of not less than 3 completely operating cycle for the control equipment and to be located where it is not exposed to damage. A governor shall be provided with the stops and starts unloaded with the parts air compressor within 5 pounds of the square inch above the maximum air pressure fixed by the carrier. Each compressor governor used in connection with the automatic air brake system shall be adjusted with the compressor and will start when the main reserve pressure is not less than 15 pounds per square inch above the maximum brake pipe pressure fix. The carrier will not stop the commuted compressor until the reserve pressure has increased 10 pounds. Alright, your aluminum main reserve pressure. Aluminum main reserve pressure used on locomotives shall be designed with a fabricated youth heads, but it shall be made with aluminum association alloy number 50830, produced in accordance with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers specification SB 209, as defined in the ASM and B boiler pressure vessel codes 1971, section 2, part B, with the page 123, with a minimal tensile strength of 40,000 psi. Each aluminum main reserve shall be designed fabricated in accordance with the ASME boiler pressure vessel code section 8 of the Division 1, 1971 edition, except otherwise provided in this part. An aluminum main reserve shall be constructed with a stand 5 times the maximum working pressure of 800 psi, which is over the grade of the aluminum main reserve has at least 2 inspection opening permitted and complete in circumferential observation tier of the surface or on the reserve less than 18 inches in diameter. The size of each of the inspection operating openings shall be at least 1.5 inch threaded iron pipe. The reserve 18 inch more in inches than the size of each opening be able to at least 2 inches threaded iron pipe. The following publications contain the industry standard for the incorporated with the reference paragraph A of the section obtained by the publisher and also the file with the Office of Safety Railroad Administration, Washington, D.C. 20590, Section 3, the Section 2 of the ASM Boiler Pressure 1971 edition, published American Society of Mechanical Engineers, United Engineering Center 345 East 47th Street, New York 117. Brake gauges. A mechanical gauge is a device provided with the indication of air pressure electronically that are used by engineer to aid the control of the braking of the train and locomotive shall be located so that they are conventionally read with the engineer usual during the operation of locomotive, and the gauge of devices shall not be more than 5% or 3 pounds per square inch in air, whichever is less. Piston travel. The brake cylinder piston travel to be sufficient to provide with the brake shoe clearance with the brakes are released. When the brakes are applied with the standing locomotive, the brake cylinder piston travel may not exceed 1.5 inches left of the total possible piston travel. Total possible piston travel to each locomotive shall be entered in the form FRA 6180498. The minimum brake cylinder pressure shall be 30 pounds per square inch. 229.57. Foundation brake gear level rod brake beam hanger of the pin may not be warmed thoroughly more than 30% of the cross-sectional area of the crossing broken. Missing all the pins shall be secured with the placement of the cotter split key for the nuts. Brake shoes shall be fastened within the brake shoe, then aligned with the relation of the wheel to prevent located thermal stress in the edge of the rim of the flange. 229.59. Leakage for the main air reserve related to the piping not exceeding the average of 3 pounds per square inch each per minute with 3 minutes for after the pressure has been reduced to 60% of the maximum pressure in brake pipe. The leakage may not be exceeded the 5 pounds per square inch with each of the per minute with the full surface application maximum pipe pressure. With the communication of the brake cylinder closed but the brake shoe remains applied with at least 5 minutes. The leakage from the control air reserve related piping pneumatically operated with the controls may not exceed an average of 3 pounds per square inch per minute of 3 minutes. Your drafting system. A coupler may not have any of the following conditions. The distance between the guard arm and the knuckle nose more than 5 and 5/16 of an inch on the D and E coupler. The crap break on the sidewall of the pin bearing the bosses outside of the shaped area shown in Figure 1 of the pulling face of the knuckle. Figure 1. Alright, a coupler assembled with the anti-friction protection free slack of the coupler all bar not operated with the friction device on the draft gears exceeding 1/2 inch of the broken crack coupler carrier, broken crack yoke, a broken draft gear device provided with under the lower end of all the drawbar pins, articulated connection pins to prevent the pin from falling out of the place and breakage. Lateral motion, except provided with the paragraph of the totally uncontrolled lateral motion between the hub and the wheel of the boxes between the box and pedestals of both any pair of the wheels may not exceed 1 inch for the non-powered axles and friction-bearing powered axles, or 3/4 of an inch of all the other powered axles. The total uncontrolled lateral motion is not to exceed 1 1/4 inch of the center axle of the 3-axle truck. 129.64. The plain barrel boxing should contain the visible free and may not be cracked to the extent that it will leak oil. 229.65. Spring rigging. Protective construction safety hangers shall be provided to prevent the spring planks or spring seats and baluster from dropping track structure in the event of the hanger or the spring failure. An elliptical spring may not have its top long leaf broken and any other 3 leaves broken except the spring is not as part of the nest of 3 or more strings, none less than none of the springs nest and has its top left or another 3 leaves broken. An outer coil of the spring and saddle may not be broken. Any of the equalizer, hanger, bolt, gip, or pin but not cracked or unbroken. A coil spring may not only be fully compressed when the locomotive is at rest. A shock absorber may be broken and leaking clearly formed droplets in oil or other fluid. Alright, 229.67. The truck. The male center plate shall extend into the female center plate at least 3/4 of an inch of the truck constructed to transmit tractive effort through the center plate and the center pin. The male center plate shall extend into the female center plate at least 1.5 inches. Maximum lost motion in the center plate assemblage may not exceed 1.5 inches. Each of the locomotive shall have the device securing arrangement to prevent the struck locomotive body from separating in case of derailment. A truck may not have a loose tie bar, cracked or broken center casting, motor suspension lug, equalizer hanger, gib or pin. Truck frame may be not broken, have a crack or impingement stress area that may affect the structural integrity. 22969 side bearings. Friction side bearings with the springs designed for the carry the weight may not have more than 25% of the spring in one nest broken. The friction side of the bearing may not be in the rule contact unless designed to carry the weight. Maximum clearance of the side bearing not exceeding 1/4 of an inch on the side of on each side of the total 1/2 on both sides, except when the more than two side bearings are under the same rigid superstructure. The clearance of one pair of side of the bearings under the same rigid superstructure shall not exceed 1/4 of an inch on each side of the total 1/2 of an inch on both sides, or other side bearings on the same rigid superstructure may not have 1/2 of the inch clearance on each side of the total 1 inch of both. So if the clearance applied with all the spread of the side bearings in 50 inches or less, where the spread is greater, the side bearing clearance may only be increased proportionally. Alright, 22971, clearance of the top of the rail. No part of the plant's locomotive except the wheel's flexible non-metallic side plate extension tip, the trip cock arms may be less than 2.5 inches above the top of the rail. Wheel set. The variation in the circumference of the wheel of the same axle not exceeding 1/4 of an inch of the two tape sides will apply to determine the maximum variation. The different diameter between the two wheel sets is in 3-powered axle trucks may not exceed 3/4 of an inch, except with the wheels when the shims are used for the journal box springs compensating for the wheel diameter variation. But the maximum variation may not exceed 1/4 inch of the maximum variation in diameter between any two wheel sets. Different trucks. The locomotive that has 3-powered axle trucks may not exceed 1/4 inch of the diameter of the wheel with the average diameter of the two wheels on the axle. On the standard gauge locomotive, the distance between the inside gauge of the flange and non-wide flange wheels may not be less than 53 inches or more than 53.5 inches. The distance between the inside gauge of the flange of the wide flange gauge may not be less than 53 and more than 53.25. The distance back of the back flange of the wheels mounted on the same. The axle shall not vary with 1/4 inch. Alright, 22975, wheel and tire defects. Wheels and tires may not have any of the following conditions. A single flat spot that is 2.5 inches or more in length, and two adjoining spots that each of the two more in length. A gouge or chip on the flange that is more than 1.5 inch in length or 1/2 inch in width. A broken rim, the tread measure of the flange of the point of 5/8 of an inch above the tread is less than 3/4 and 3 3/4 of an inch wide. A shelled out spot with 2.5 inches more length than two adjoining spots that each of the two or more inches in length. A seam running lengthwise in the width of 3 3/4 of an inch in flange. A flange worn with 7/8 of an inch thickness or less. Gauge at a point of 3/8 of an inch above the tread. A tread worn hollow 5/16 of an inch more than locomotive. The road surface of 3/8 of an inch and more of the locomotive. And switching surface at hip plate, inch height and 1.5 inches above the more measure of the tread at the top of the flange. The tire less than 1 1/2 inch thickness. The rims less than 1 inch thick on the locomotive. The road surface is less than 3/4 inch locomotive. The yard surface. Okay, the crack of the braking flange, tread of the rim and plate hub, the loose wheel in the tire, the fusion welding not to be used with the tire and steel wheels on the locomotives except with the repair of the flat spots or worn flange from locomotives using successfully yard surface. The wheel that has been welded is a welded wheel for a life of the wheel. Electrical systems, we're going to clip that there.